The world came back to Jake Martinez in waves of pain and smoke. His head felt like someone had hit it with a hammer. Blood ran down his face and dripped onto the metal floor of what used to be his dropship. Now it was just twisted metal and broken dreams. Jake tried to move his legs. They worked, which was good. He tried to sit up. His ribs hurt, but nothing felt broken. Around him, the ship groaned and creaked like a dying animal. Smoke poured from holes in the walls and sparks flew from broken wires. He looked around at his squad. Danny was face down near the pilot's seat, not moving. Lisa hung from her safety harness, her neck bent at a wrong angle. Pete was under a piece of the ceiling, his eyes staring at nothing. Jake felt sick. These were his people, his friends. Now they were gone. Jake's biomask beeped at him. He looked at the small screen on his wrist. 6 hours of clean air left. After that, the poison atmosphere of this planet would kill him slowly. He had seen what it did to animals in the lab tests. It was not a good way to die. He pulled himself to his feet and looked through a crack in the ship's hull. The sky was orange and filled with thick clouds. The ground was covered in sharp rocks and strange plants that looked like they were made of glass. This was Kepler 442b, a planet so far from Earth that the journey here took 2 years. Jake and his squad were supposed to set up a base here. The main colony ships were coming in 6 months, and they needed to know it was safe. Instead, something had shot them down. Jake remembered the attack. Ships that looked like metal birds with too many wings. They had come out of nowhere. The biomask beeped again. Jake looked at the reading. His heart sank. The ship's air recycling system was damaged. Poison was leaking in. He had maybe 5 hours now, not 6. Jake grabbed his rifle and checked it. Still worked. He found his pack and put it on. Inside was food, water, and some medical supplies. Not much, but it would have to do. He also found the radio, but it was broken. The main antenna was gone, probably torn off when they crashed. A sound made him freeze. It was low and rhythmic like a heartbeat. But it was coming from outside, from the sky. Jake looked up through the hole in the ship's roof. Dark shapes moved through the orange clouds. They were far away, but getting closer. Jake's training kicked. He found the best hiding spot in the wreckage and waited. The sound got louder. Soon he could see them clearly. 3 ships, sleek and fast, with wings that moved like a bird's. They were not human ships. They were not like the ones that shot him down either. The ships landed about 100 meters away. Jake watched through his rifle scope as things came out of them. They were tall, maybe 7 feet, with long arms and legs. Their skin looked like it was made of metal plates. They moved quickly and smoothly, like dancers. Jake had seen pictures of these aliens in his briefings. They were called Zephyrians. The intelligence report said they were killers who destroyed human colonies without mercy. They were supposed to be the enemy, but as Jake watched, something strange happened. The aliens spread out and started searching the area. They moved carefully, like they were looking for something specific. One of them found something in the dirt and called the others over. They gathered around it, and Jake could see it was a piece of metal. It looked like part of a ship. Then Jake saw something that made his blood run cold. More shapes in the sky. These were different from the Zephyrian ships. They were bigger and darker, with no wings at all. They moved in perfect formation like a school of fish. The Zephyrians saw them too. They started running back to their ships, but they were too late. Beams of red light came down from the dark ships and hit the ground. Where the beams touched, the dirt turned to glass. The Zephyrians scattered, but 2 of them were caught in the light. They screamed, a high sound like breaking glass, and then they were gone. 1 Zephyrian ship got away, but the other 2 exploded in balls of fire. Jake watched in horror as the dark ships landed and things came out of them. They were not alive. They were machines made of black metal and sharp edges. They moved like spiders, quick and silent. Jake heard a sound behind him. He turned and saw a Zephyrian warrior stumbling through the wreckage. The alien was hurt bad. Purple blood leaked from holes in its armor. Its breathing mask was broken and sparking. It moved slowly, like every step was painful. Jake raised his rifle and aimed at the alien's head. This was the enemy. This was one of the creatures that had killed human families on the outer colonies. His finger tightened on the trigger, but something made him stop. The alien was not looking at him. It was looking at the machines that were spreading out across the crash site. Its body language was not threatening. It was afraid. Jake lowered his rifle slightly and watched. The alien tried to reach for a weapon that had fallen nearby, but it was too weak. It collapsed to its knees, then fell forward onto its face. Purple blood pooled around it. The machines were getting closer. Jake could see them clearly now. They had multiple arms that ended in different tools. Some had saws, some had needles, some had things that looked like cameras. They moved from body to body, doing something to each one. Jake realized with growing horror that they were harvesting. Taking parts, eating the dead. The biomask beeped again. 4 hours and 50 minutes of air left. Jake looked at the dying alien, then at the machines getting closer. He had a choice to make. He could hide here and hope the machines did not find him. Maybe they would leave when they finished their work. Maybe he could survive long enough for rescue to come. But rescue was not coming. The radio was broken and nobody knew where he was, or he could do something that went against everything he had been taught. He could help the enemy. Jake looked at the alien again. It was trying to crawl away from the approaching machines. Its broken breathing mask was making horrible sounds. Without it, the alien would die from the poisoned air, just like Jake would. The machines were only 50 meters away now. Jake could hear their mechanical parts moving. Click, whir, click. They sounded hungry. Jake made his decision. He slung his rifle over his shoulder and crawled toward the alien. When he reached it, he could see that it was still alive. Its eyes were open, large and golden like a cat's. They looked at him with surprise and fear. Jake pointed at the machines, then at himself and the alien. He made a gesture that meant, hide. The alien seemed to understand. It nodded weakly. Jake grabbed the alien under its arms and dragged it deeper into the wreckage. The alien was heavy, but Jake was strong. He found a spot where the ship's hull had folded over itself, creating a small cave. He pulled the alien inside just as the first machine reached their original position. They were hidden now, but Jake's biomask showed that the alien was dying. Its breathing was getting worse. Without a working mask, it would be dead in minutes. Jake looked at his own biomask. 4 hours and 45 minutes of air left. Enough for one person. Maybe enough for two if they were very careful. He was about to do something that would probably get him killed. But as he looked at the alien warrior, hurt and afraid, he realized something important. Maybe the enemy was not who he thought it was. Maybe the real enemy was outside, clicking and whirring as it harvested the dead. Jake reached for his biomask. Jake pulled off his biomask and held it toward the alien warrior. The poisoned air hit his lungs like fire. He could only hold his breath for so long before he would need the mask back. The alien's golden eyes went wide with surprise. It looked at the mask, then at Jake, then back at the mask. Its breathing was getting weaker. Purple blood bubbled from its mouth. Jake pushed the mask closer to the alien's face. He pointed at it, then at himself, then made a gesture that meant sharing. The alien understood. It took the mask with shaking hands and pressed it to its face. The alien breathed deeply through the mask. Its body relaxed as clean air filled its lungs. Jake counted in his head, 30 seconds. That was all he could manage. He reached for the mask. The alien gave it back without fighting. Jake put it on and breathed deeply. The clean air tasted like life itself. His lungs stopped burning. He looked at his wrist display. 4 hours and 40 minutes left. Outside their hiding place, the machines kept working. Jake could hear them cutting and sawing. Sometimes they made clicking sounds to each other like they were talking. The alien warrior listened too. Fear showed in its golden eyes. Jake pointed at the machines, then made a questioning gesture. The aliens seemed to understand. It touched a small device on its chest. The device was cracked and sparking, but it still worked a little. A voice came out of it, speaking broken English. "Devourers," the voice said. It was mechanical and hard to understand. They eat everything, they eat planets. Jake felt cold. He had never heard of devourers before. The intelligence reports back on Earth never mentioned them. He pointed at himself and said his name slowly. Jake? The alien pointed at itself. Kethvar, it said through the broken translator. The name sounded like wind through metal. Jake pointed at the machines again and made a questioning gesture. Kethvar understood. Through the broken translator, he began to tell Jake about the devourers. They were machines, but not like the robots humans built. They were alive in their own way. They traveled from planet to planet, eating everything that lived. They turned living things into energy to make more of themselves. They had been destroying worlds for thousands of years. My people, Kethvar, said through the translator. My world, gone, all gone. Jake felt something heavy in his chest. He had thought the Zephyrians were the enemy, but now he learned they were running from something worse, something that ate entire worlds. Your people attack human colonies, Jake said carefully. Why? Kethvar's eyes showed sadness. Devourers came to our worlds, we had to run. Needed new places to live, did not know humans were good people. Thought you were like devourers? Jake understood now. The attacks on human colonies were not planned invasions. They were desperate refugees looking for new homes. The Zephyrians had been afraid and confused, just like humans would be if Earth was destroyed. How long have devourers been chasing you? Jake asked. 3 years of your time, Kethvar said. They ate 7 of our worlds. Billions of my people died, only few ships escaped. Jake felt sick. While humans were fighting small wars with each other, something was destroying entire civilizations. And nobody on Earth knew about it. It was time to share the biomask again. Jake took it off and gave it to Kethvar. The alien breathed deeply while Jake held his breath and counted 30 seconds. Then they switched back. The machines outside were getting closer. Jake could hear them cutting through the ship's hull. Soon they would find the hiding place. He and Kethvar needed to move. Jake looked at his rifle, then at Kethvar. The alien warrior was hurt but not helpless. Even wounded, he was still a fighter. Jake made a gesture that meant, "Can you fight?" Kethvar nodded. He reached for a weapon that had fallen nearby. It was long and thin like a sword made of metal and light. Even damaged, it still hummed with power. Jake pointed toward the back of the ship. There was a hole in the hull there, big enough for them to crawl through, but they would have to move fast and quiet. The machines would see them if they were not careful. They shared the biomask one more time. Then Jake led the way toward the hole. Kethvar followed, moving slowly because of his wounds. The alien was tough, but he was hurt bad. Just as they reached the hole, a machine found their hiding place. It was the size of a large dog with 6 legs and multiple arms. Red lights glowed where its eyes should be. It saw them and made a loud clicking sound. Jake shot it with his rifle. The bullets hit its metal body and made sparks fly. The machine staggered but did not fall. Its arms turned into weapons. Energy beams shot toward Jake and Kethvar. Kethvar moved faster than Jake thought possible. His sword weapon cut through the machine's body like it was made of paper. The machine fell apart in sparks and smoke, but the noise had attracted more machines. Jake could hear them coming from all directions. Click, whir, click. They were angry. Now, Jake and Kethvar crawled through the hole in the ship's hull. Outside, the orange sky was getting darker. Strange winds blew the glass-like plants around them. The ground was covered in sharp rocks that would cut their feet. They needed to find shelter, but where? The landscape was empty except for rocks and strange plants. In the distance, Jake could see mountains, but they were too far away. Kethvar pointed toward a group of large rocks about 200 meters away. They were tall and had deep shadows between them. It was not perfect, but it was better than being in the open. They ran toward the rocks, sharing the biomask as they moved. It was harder now because they were moving fast. Jake's lungs burned every time he took it off. Kethvar was getting weaker too. Behind them, machines poured out of the wrecked ship. They moved like a river of metal and death. Some flew, others crawled, others walked on legs like spiders. They spread out across the landscape. Hunting. Jake and Kethvar reached the rocks just as the first flying machine spotted them. Energy beams hit the stones around them, turning rock into glass. They dove between the rocks and pressed themselves against the stone. The machines surrounded the rock formation, but they did not attack. They waited and watched. Jake realized they were being smart. They knew Jake and Kethvar had to come out eventually. When they did, the machines would be ready. Jake checked his biomask display. 4 hours and 20 minutes left. They were using air faster now because they were moving and afraid. At this rate, they would run out in 3 hours. Kethvar pointed at his broken translator and spoke slowly. "There is something you must know," the mechanical voice said. "Devourers are not just here by accident. They followed us. They track refugee ships." Jake felt cold. "What do you mean?" "They know about your people now," Kethvar said. "They know about Earth. When they finish here, they will go there next." Jake stared at the alien warrior. Earth was in danger. His family was in danger. Everyone he had ever known was in danger. And nobody knew it was coming. "How long before they reach Earth?" Jake asked. "If they leave now, maybe 2 years, maybe less." Jake thought about his little sister back home. She was only 12 years old. She liked to draw pictures of flowers and play with her dog. She did not know that metal monsters were coming to eat her world. "We have to warn them," Jake said. Kethvar nodded. "Yes, but first we must survive. And my people must survive too. We can help each other." Jake looked at the alien warrior. A few hours ago, he had been ready to shoot him. Now they were planning to save both their peoples. War made strange friends. The machines outside were getting restless. Some of them started cutting into the rocks. Others began to climb over the formation. Soon there would be nowhere to hide. Jake shared the biomask with Kethvar again. As they breathed, they planned. They could not stay here. They could not fight all the machines. They had to run, but where could they go? And how long could they keep sharing the biomask before one of them died? Jake looked at his wrist display again. 4 hours and 15 minutes. Time was running out for both of them. The machines were getting closer. Jake could hear them cutting through the rock above his head. Sparks and hot stone dust fell on him and Kethvar. As they pressed themselves deeper into the shadows, Jake looked at his biomask display. 4 hours and 10 minutes left. They were using air too fast. Every time they shared the mask, they lost precious seconds. Every time they moved or got scared, they breathed harder. Kethvar was getting weaker. The purple blood from his wounds had stopped flowing, but his golden eyes were getting dim. He needed real medical help, not just shared air from a biomask. A machine dropped down from above. It was small, about the size of a cat, with many tiny arms that moved like fingers. It had a camera for a head and red lights for eyes. It was a scout looking for them. Jake held very still. The machine's red light swept back and forth across the rocks. It was only 3 feet away from where they were hiding. If it looked down, it would see them. The scout machine made soft clicking sounds. It was talking to the other machines, telling them where to search. Jake could hear more machines moving around outside. They were everywhere now. Kethvar pointed at the scout machine and made a gesture. He wanted to destroy it. But Jake shook his head. If they killed the scout, the other machines would know where they were. Better to stay hidden. The scout machine moved away, but it did not go far. It stayed near the rocks, watching and waiting. Jake realized the machines were not just hunting them. They were playing with them. They knew Jake and Kethvar were trapped. They were taking their time. Jake and Kethvar shared the biomask again. As Kethvar breathed, he spoke through his broken translator. "On my world," he said quietly, "we had a saying. When death comes hunting, the wise warrior does not run. He chooses where to make his stand." Jake nodded. They could not keep running and hiding. The biomask would not last forever. They needed a plan. "Tell me about the machines," Jake whispered. "How do we fight them?" Kethvar took the mask off and gave it back to Jake. "They are strong but not smart. They follow patterns. They work together like Like insects in a hive? Jake breathed deeply. Through the mask, the clean air helped him think. What patterns? They always send scouts first, then hunters, then harvesters. The scouts find food, the hunters kill it. The harvesters take it apart. Jake understood. Right now they were in the scout phase. Soon would come the hunters. Those would be bigger and more dangerous. How long do we have? Jake asked. Not long, maybe 1 hour of your time. Jake looked at his biomask display. 4 hours and 5 minutes of air left. But they would be dead long before the air ran out. New sound came from outside. It was deeper and louder than the clicking of the scout machines. Something big was moving out there. The hunter phase was starting. Jake peeked through a crack in the rocks. What he saw made his heart stop. A machine the size of a truck was walking toward them on 6 legs. Its body was covered in weapons and armor. Red lights glowed all over. It like angry eyes. Behind the big machine came smaller ones. They moved like wolves following a pack leader. Each one had different weapons. Some had energy beams. Others had sharp cutting tools. All of them looked hungry. We need to move, Jake whispered. Ket-VAR nodded. Yes, but where? Jake looked around their hiding place. The rocks formed a kind of maze with narrow passages between them. Maybe they could use that. The big machines would have trouble following them through tight spaces. Can you run? Jake asked. Kethvar tried to stand. His legs shook, but he stayed up. I can try. Jake helped him to his feet. The alien warrior was taller than Jake had thought. Even hurt, he looked strong and dangerous. His sword weapon hummed with power. They shared the biomask one more time. Then Jake led the way toward the back of the rock formation. There was a narrow passage there, barely wide enough for one person. They squeezed through the passage just as the big machine reached their old hiding spot. Jake heard it smash into the rocks, trying to follow them. But it was too big. It could not fit. The smaller machines tried to follow, but the passage was like a maze. It twisted and turned in ways that confused them. Jake and Kethvar stayed ahead, moving as fast as they could, but the passage had an end. They came out into a small open space surrounded by tall rocks. It was like being in the bottom of a well. There was nowhere else to go. The machines found them quickly. They poured into the open space from every direction. Jake counted at least 20 of them. Some came from the passage behind them. Others climbed over the rocks from above. Jake raised his rifle and started shooting. His bullets hit the machines and made them stumble, but they kept coming. Kethvar swung his sword weapon in great arcs. Every time it hit a machine, the machine fell apart in sparks and smoke. But there were 2. Many of them. For every machine they destroyed, 2 more took its place. Jake's rifle was running out of bullets. Kethvar was getting slower as his wounds weakened him. A machine with sharp cutting arms rushed at Jake. He shot it, but it kept coming. The cutting arms reached for his face. Jake ducked, and the arms cut through the air where his head had been. Kethvar's sword weapon cut the machine in half. Purple blood was running down the alien's face, but he kept fighting. His golden eyes were bright with battle fury. We cannot win this way, Kethvar said through his translator. Jake knew he was right. They were trapped and outnumbered. Soon they would be dead, and the machines would harvest their bodies. Earth would never know about the danger coming for it. But then Jake noticed something. The machines were not trying to kill them quickly. They were being careful, like they wanted to capture them alive. Jake realized why. Living things gave them more energy than dead ones. They want us alive, Jake said. Kethvar understood. Yes, we are more valuable to them breathing. That gave Jake an idea. It was crazy and dangerous, but it might work. He looked at his biomask display. 3 hours and 50 minutes left. Enough time for his plan if they were very lucky. Can you make your sword weapon explode? Jake asked. Kethvar's eyes went wide. Yes, but it would kill us too. Not if we time it right. Can you set a delay? Kethvar looked at his weapon. He touched some controls on its handle. Yes, but why? Jake explained his plan. It was simple, but risky. They would pretend to surrender. Let the machines capture them. Then, when the machines were taking them to their ship, the sword weapon would explode. In the confusion, they would escape. "It is a good plan," Kethvar said. "But if we are wrong about the timing, we die." "We are going to die anyway," Jake said. "At least this way we have a chance," Kethvar nodded. He set the timer on his weapon for 10 minutes. Then he threw it on the ground and raised his hands. Jake did the same with his rifle. The machines stopped attacking. They moved closer. But they did not hurt Jake and Kethvar. Metal arms reached out and grabbed them. The touch was cold and hard. Jake and Kethvar were dragged out of the rocks and across the open ground. In the distance, Jake could see a large ship. It was black and covered in sharp edges. This was where the machines lived. They shared the biomask. As they were dragged along, it was harder now because their arms were held by machines, but they managed it. 3 hours and 40 minutes left. As they got closer to the ship, Jake saw something that made him sick. The ship was covered in organic matter. Pieces of flesh and bone were built into its hull. This was what the machines did with the living things they harvested. They made them part of their ships. Jake saw pieces that looked like they had come from humans. Other pieces looked Zephyrian. The machines had been busy on this planet. "Do you see?" Kethvar said quietly. "This is what they do. They make the living into the dead. They make the dead into themselves." Jake felt anger burning in his chest. These machines were not just killers. They were defilers. They took beautiful living things and turned them into ugly metal and death. The ship's door opened. Inside, Jake could see more machines working. They were building something with the organic matter they had collected. It looked like a weapon of some kind. Jake and Kethvar were dragged toward the door. In 5 minutes, the sword weapon would explode. In 3 hours and 35 minutes, the biomask would stop working. One way or another, this would be over soon. Jake looked at Kethvar. The alien warrior looked back at him. They were probably going to die together. But at least they would die fighting. The ship's door closed behind them with a sound like a coffin lid slamming shut. Inside the Devourer ship, Jake and Kethvar were dragged through halls made of metal and flesh. The walls pulsed like they were alive. Red lights ran through them like blood through veins. The air smelled like death and machine oil. Jake tried not to look too closely at the walls. He could see pieces of things that had once been alive. A hand here, an eye there. Parts from creatures he did not recognize. The machines had turned living beings into decoration. The machines dragged them to a large room in the center of the ship. The floor was covered in a strange substance that felt soft and wet. Jake realized with horror that they were walking on processed organic matter. The remains of thousands of living things. In the center of the room stood a machine bigger than all the others. It was the size of a house, with dozens of arms and hundreds of red lights. This was the ship's brain, the thing that controlled all the other machines. The big machine spoke in a voice like grinding metal. Jake could not understand the words, but the meaning was clear. It was examining them, deciding what to do with them. Jake looked at Kethvar. The alien warrior's golden eyes were calm. He was counting in his head, just like Jake was. 3 minutes until the sword weapon exploded. 3 minutes to live or die. The machines holding them started moving toward a wall covered in tubes and wires. Jake saw other prisoners there, held in glass containers. Most were dead, but some were still alive. Their eyes stared out with hopeless fear. Jake and Kethvar were pushed toward 2 empty containers. The machines were going to put them inside and keep them alive while they slowly harvested parts from them. It would take days or weeks to die. It would not be a good death. 2 minutes left. The machines opened the containers. Cold air rushed out, filled with chemicals that would keep prisoners alive but unable to move. Jake felt the first machine arm reaching for him. That was when Kethvar moved. The alien warrior was faster than Jake had thought possible. Even with his wounds, even after all they had been through, he still had fight left in him. His free hand grabbed a small device from his belt. It was the emergency beacon, the kind Zephyrian warriors used to call for help. Kethvar smashed the beacon against the floor. It began to flash and make noise. Every machine in the room turned toward the sound. For a moment, they were distracted. Jake used that moment to break free from the machine holding him. He punched its camera eye and rolled away as it swung sharp arms at him. HFY was fighting too, using his hands and feet like weapons. 1 minute left. They could not fight all the machines, but they did not need to. They just needed to survive 1 more minute. Jake grabbed HFY and pulled him toward a corner of the room where some equipment gave them cover. The machines surrounded them, but they moved carefully. They still wanted their prisoners alive. Energy beams shot over Jake's head, meant to stun rather than kill. 30 seconds left. Jake and HFY shared the biomask one last time. As they breathed, they looked into each other's eyes. Human and alien, enemy and friend, brought together by war and desperation. It has been an honor to fight beside you, HFY said through his translator. Same here, brother, Jake said. He meant it. In the last few hours, this alien warrior had become closer to him than some humans he had known for years. 10 seconds left. The machines were closing in. Sharp arms reached for them, red lights focused on their faces. In a few seconds they would be captured again. This time, there would be no escape. 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. The explosion was bigger than Jake had expected. HFY's sword weapon had been designed to cut through starship armor. When it exploded, it took out half the room. The walls buckled and tore. Machines were thrown in all directions. The big brain machine screamed in a voice like breaking metal. Sparks and fire filled the air. Jake and HFY were thrown against the wall, but they were alive. The explosion had been far enough away to save them, but close enough to destroy most of the machines around them. Emergency lights began flashing. Alarms rang throughout the ship. Jake could hear the sound of the ship's hull cracking. The explosion had done more damage than they hoped. We need to move, Jake said. This ship is going to fall apart. HFY nodded. He was hurt worse now, but he could still walk. They ran toward what looked like an exit, stepping over broken machines and pieces of the wall. The ship was shaking itself apart. Pieces of the ceiling fell around them as they ran. Behind them, Jake could hear the big brain machine giving orders to repair the damage. But many of its smaller machines were destroyed or damaged. They found a hole in the ship's hull where the explosion had torn through. Outside, Jake could see the orange sky of the alien planet. It looked beautiful compared to the horror inside the ship. Jake and HFY jumped through the hole and landed. Hard on the rocky ground, the ship was 20 feet above them, held up by metal legs that were starting to bend and break. They ran as fast as they could away from the ship. Behind them, more explosions shook the air. The ship was coming apart, piece by piece. When they were far enough away to be safe, they stopped and looked back. The ship was on fire, its hull cracked open like an egg. Machines poured out of it, like angry insects, but many of them were damaged. They moved slowly and without purpose. Jake checked his biomask display. 3 hours and 20 minutes left. They had survived the ship, but they were still trapped on this planet with no way home. Where do we go now? Jake asked. HFY pointed toward the mountains in the distance. My ship crashed there, he said. If the radio still works, maybe we can call for help. It was 17 kilometers to the mountains. A long walk across dangerous ground with machines hunting them and poisoned air trying to kill them. But it was their only chance. They started walking. Jake had found some rope in the ship's wreckage, and he used it to make a harness that connected him to HFY. This way, they could share the biomask while moving. It was awkward, but it worked. As they walked, HFY told Jake more about his people. They were not the savage warriors that human intelligence had described. They were scientists and artists, builders and dreamers. Before the Devourers came, they had lived in peace for thousands of years. We had cities that floated in the clouds, HFY said. Gardens that grew music instead of flowers. Children who learned to fly before they could walk. Jake tried to imagine it. A whole civilization, beautiful and strange, wiped out by machines that cared nothing for beauty or life. What will your people do now? Jake asked. Find a new home. Try to rebuild, but there are so few of us left. Maybe 1 million survivors from a population of 20 billion. Jake felt the weight of that loss. 20 billion people, dead because of machines. It was hard to understand numbers that big. Each one had been someone's child, someone's parent, someone's friend. They walked in silence for a while, sharing the biomask and watching the sky for more devourer ships. The landscape around them was empty and strange. Glass plants that sang. In the wind, rocks that changed color when the light hit them. It might have been beautiful under other circumstances. After 2 hours of walking, they saw something that made them both stop. In the distance, rising from the ground like a metal mountain, was a human outpost. Jake recognized the design from his training. It was a forward base, the kind the military built on new planets, but something was wrong. The base was under attack. Jake could see energy beams flashing around it, explosions lit up the sky. The devourers had found it. My people are in there, Jake said. I have to help them. Kethvar nodded. We help them together. But first we need a plan. Jake looked at his biomask display. 1 hour and 20 minutes left. Not much time to save a base full of people. Not much time to save himself, but as he looked at the battle in the distance, Jake realized something important. He was not the same person who had crashed on this planet. A few hours ago, he would have shot Kethvar on sight. Now, they were planning to fight together to save Jake's people. War changed things. Sometimes it made enemies into friends. Sometimes it showed you that the real enemy was not who you thought it was. Jake and Kethvar started running toward the base. They had work to do. Jake and Kethvar ran toward the human base as fast as they could. The sounds of battle grew louder with each step. Energy beams lit up the orange sky like deadly lightning. Explosions shook the ground under their feet. As they got closer, Jake could see the base clearly. It was built into a hill with thick walls and gun towers. The human flag flew from the highest tower, torn but still there. Soldiers in biomasks fired weapons from behind cover while devourer machines attacked from all sides. The base was losing. Jake could see holes in the walls where energy beams had broken through. Some of the gun towers were destroyed. Bodies lay scattered around the outer defenses. His people were fighting hard, but they were outnumbered. Jake checked his biomask display. 55 minutes of air left. Not much time to make a difference, but he had to try. How do we get inside? Jake asked as they crouched behind a large rock near the base. Kethvar studied the battle. His golden eyes moved quickly, taking in everything. There, he said, pointing to a small gate on the side of the base. The machines are not watching that area. We can reach it. But there was a problem. Between them and the gate was open ground. 200 meters with no cover. If the machines saw them, they would be dead before they took 10 steps. I know devourer tactics, Kethvar said. If I draw their attention, you can reach the gate. Jake understood what the alien warrior meant. It was a suicide mission. Kethvar would run straight at the machines, making noise and shooting while Jake sneaked around to the gate. The machines would focus on Kethvar and ignore Jake. No, Jake said. We go together or not at all. Kethvar looked at him with something like sadness. You do not understand. Only one of us needs to reach your people. Only one of us needs to tell them about the devourers. You know your people? You can make them listen? Jake wanted to argue, but he knew Kethvar was right. The humans at the base would not trust an alien. They would shoot first and ask questions later. But they would listen to Jake. He could tell them about the threat to Earth. They shared the biomask one more time. 50 minutes left. As Kethvar breathed, he spoke through his damaged translator. Tell your people about mine, he said. Tell them we are not enemies. Tell them we can help each other. I will, Jake promised. And I will tell them about you, about what you did here. Kethvar smiled. It was strange to see an alien smile. But Jake understood it. It has been good to fight beside a human warrior. Your people are braver than we thought. Jake felt something heavy in his chest. This alien had become his friend, maybe his best friend, in just a few hours. Now he was going to die so Jake could live. Wait, Jake said. He had an idea. What if we both make it? What if there is another way? But even as he said it, Jake knew. There was no other way. The base was surrounded. The only path in required a distraction. Someone had to sacrifice themselves. Kethvar stood up and checked his remaining weapons. He had a small energy pistol and a knife. Not much to fight an army of machines, but enough to make noise and draw attention. When I start shooting, you run, Kethvar said. Do not look back. Do not try to help me. Just run. Jake nodded. He handed the biomask to Kethvar for the last time. Take this. You need it more than I do. Kethvar pushed the mask back toward Jake. No, you must reach the base alive. You must warn Earth. The base is only 200 meters away, Jake said. I can hold my breath that long. You take it. They argued for precious seconds, each trying to give the mask to the other. Finally, Kethvar took it. But Jake could see in his golden eyes that he was planning something. Kethvar ran toward the machines, shouting in his own language and firing his energy pistol. The weapon made bright flashes and loud noises. Every machine in the area turned toward him. Jake started running toward the gate. His lungs burned as the poisoned air filled them, but he kept going. The gate was getting closer. 150 meters. 100 meters. 50 meters. Behind him, he could hear Kethvar fighting. The alien warrior was moving fast, dodging energy beams and striking back with his knife. He was amazing to watch, like a dancer of death. But there were too many machines. Jake reached the gate and pounded on it with his fists. Open up! He shouted. Human soldier, open the gate! The gate opened, and human hands pulled him inside. Jake gasped and coughed as soldiers surrounded him. They were wearing biomasks and carrying weapons. Their faces showed surprise and suspicion. Who are you? Asked a woman with sergeant stripes. How did you get here? Jake Martinez, 3rd Marine Regiment, Jake said between coughs. My ship crashed. I have critical information about the enemy. The sergeant looked at Jake's uniform and dog tags. You are supposed to be dead, Martinez. Your ship went down 12 hours ago. I survived, Jake said. But listen to me. These machines are not the real enemy. There is something worse coming, something that will destroy Earth. Jake told them about the Devourers, about Kethvar, about the threat to both human and Zephyrian worlds. The soldiers listened with growing alarm. Some of them did not believe him, but the sergeant was smart. She understood. We need to get this information to command, she said. The radio is in the command bunker. Can you walk? Jake nodded. His lungs still burned, but he was alive. As they walked toward the bunker, he looked back at the gate. Through the reinforced glass, he could see the battle outside. Kethvar was still fighting, but he was slowing down. The machines were closing in. There is someone out there, Jake said. An alien warrior. He saved my life. He's fighting the machines so I could reach you. The sergeant looked through the glass. I see him. He is good, but he will not last much longer. Jake watched as Kethvar fought his last battle. The alien warrior moved with desperate grace, striking down machine after machine. But for every one he destroyed, 2 more took its place. Then Jake saw something that made his heart stop. Kethvar was not just fighting. He was moving toward something. Near the center of the machine army was a large unit that looked like a command center. If someone could destroy it, the other machines might stop working. Kethvar was planning one final attack. He was going to sacrifice himself to save the base. Open the gate, Jake said. What? The sergeant said. You just got inside. Open the gate. I'm going back out. You will die out there. Jake was already running back toward the gate. Maybe, but he saved my life. I will not let him die alone. The soldiers tried to stop him, but Jake was faster. He reached the gate controls and hit the emergency open button. The gate began to swing open, but as Jake stepped toward the opening, he felt hands grab his arms. The soldiers were holding him back. Let me go, Jake shouted. He is my friend. You have critical information, the sergeant said. You cannot. Throw your life away. Jake struggled, but there were too many hands holding him. Through the open gate, he could see Kethvar making his final charge toward the command machine. Energy beams cut through the air around him. Some of them hit him, but he kept going. Kethvar reached the command machine and activated something. On his belt? It was an emergency beacon, the same kind he had used on the ship, but this one was different. This one was set to overload. The explosion was huge. It destroyed the command machine and dozens of smaller ones. The remaining machines stopped moving for a moment, confused without orders. In that moment, the human soldiers opened fire with everything they had. The battle turned quickly after that. Without their command unit, the machines were just metal and circuits. The humans destroyed them one by one until the area around the base was quiet. Jake stood at the open gate, looking at the smoking crater where Kethvar had made his last stand. The alien warrior was gone, but his sacrifice had saved them all. The sergeant put a hand on Jake's shoulder. He was a hero, she said. What was his name? Kethvar, Jake said. His name was Kethvar. Later, in the command bunker, Jake sent his report to Earth. He told them about the Devourers, about the threat coming for their world. He told them about the Zephyrians and how they were refugees, not enemies. He told them about Kethvar and how an alien warrior had given his life to save humans he had never met. The response from Earth came quickly. They believed him. Ships were already being prepared to evacuate threatened colonies. Weapons were being built to fight the Devourers. Most importantly, contact was being made with the surviving Zephyrian fleets. The war between humans and Zephyrians ended that day. In its place came an alliance, built on the sacrifice of two warriors who had found friendship in the face of death. Jake Martinez lived to see that alliance grow strong. He lived to see human and Zephyrian ships fighting side by side against the Devourers. He lived to see the machines pushed back into the dark between stars, but he never forgot Kethvar, the alien warrior who had shared his air and his courage. In the years that followed, children of both species would learn their story. How a human and an alien, enemies who became brothers, proved that courage and friendship could bridge any gap. Sometimes, the greatest victories came not from defeating your enemies, but from saving them. Sometimes, the smallest act of kindness could change the fate of worlds. Jake Martinez learned that on an alien planet, breathing poisoned air with a warrior whose name meant wind through metal, and the galaxy was better for it.